Hey everybody, welcome back to the SuperBake podcast. I'm your host, Baker. Let's talk about stuff. Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. So tonight, got another fun one for you. Gonna give my spoiler-filled review for the new Borderlands movie that just came out. Saw that the other night with a few friends of mine, and I have thoughts on this movie, and it is a stinker. Yeah, I feel like I'm usually a pretty laid-back, easygoing critic when it comes to movies and video games. I feel like anyone who listens to my show probably has noticed by now that I'm usually not too harsh on most stuff that I review, but yeah, this is not going to be one of those times. This movie was definitely bad, and I'll get into some of the reasons why here in just a moment. But first, just going to go over the story just a little bit. So if you've played the games at all, you probably will be familiar at least somewhat with the story of this film. Basically, the movie takes place on the fictional world of Pandora, a backwoods planet that's overrun with gangs such as psychos, as well as corrupt corporations. The corporation known as Atlas, which is also run by the main villain of the movie named Atlas, his daughter, Tiny Tina, in this movie played by Ariana Greenblatt, is kidnapped by the mercenary Roland, played by Kevin Hart. So Atlas hires a bounty hunter named Lilith, played by Cate Blanchett, to go to Pandora, which is also her home world, in order to rescue Tiny Tina and bring her back to her father. She finds out later that Tina has apparently the blood of an ancient race called the Iridians, and that she holds the key to opening a door to what's known as a vault, which houses incredibly powerful technology left by the Iridians, and Atlas wants to harness it for himself. So Lilith and the others have to work together to try to stop Atlas from using that power to take over Pandora and effectively the rest of the universe. So right off the bat, I just want to say I've played every game in the Borderlands series except for the very first one. I've seen one of my friends play most of it, but it's been a long time. But me and my three friends that I went to go see this movie with, we've all played the Borderlands games together. We played Borderlands 2 multiple times. We've played Borderlands 3. We've played the pre-sequel, Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. We've played all the DLC for those games. We have collectively put in hundreds of hours in those games. And so it's safe to say that we are fans of the series. So we went to go see this movie together. We had seen the bad press that it was getting, so weren't exactly excited for this one. And I can definitely say, walking out of there, it was definitely warranted. The bad reviews, that is. I wouldn't necessarily call this the worst video game adaptation or movie that I've ever seen, but it's definitely up there. It is definitely one of the worst ones I've seen in a long time, that's for sure. So, yeah, I'll just kind of get into it a little bit, just kind of my overall thoughts of the movie just in general. First off, the casting. I've got to talk about that. So Cate Blanchett plays Lilith. Cate Blanchett feels incredibly miscast in this movie. Number one, she's I think in her mid-50s, so she's not that old, but Lilith is in the games, I believe, in her 20s, maybe her early 30s. So right out the gate, Cate Blanchett feels very miscast in this role. I just feel like every scene that I see her in, it seems like she's definitely trying to give at least somewhat of a good performance, and it does seem like she's at least kind of having fun in a lot of the scenes that she's in. But at the same time, whenever I see her, it doesn't look like Lilith from the games. I don't know, just she doesn't match the character that I had in my mind. And especially on the scenes where it shows close-ups of her face, I just keep thinking she just looks so much older than what Lilith should look like. And speaking of that, Jamie Lee Curtis plays the character Tannis. And I like Jamie Lee Curtis, I have nothing against her, but she's in her 60s. And again, she's playing a character who is supposed to be in her 20s or 30s. I remember Tannis from Borderlands 3, and and also from Borderlands 2. And yeah, she's supposed to be this much younger character. And I don't really understand why they chose to have these two people play these characters when they're so much older than what they are in the games. That to me did not make any sense, and I don't know. I kept thinking about it to the point where it was becoming very distracting. Kevin Hart as Roland, again, Roland from the first game. Like, I know a lot of people are making those jokes about Kevin Hart being very short, and that Roland from the games, he's not a big guy necessarily, but like, yeah, like I'm kind of confused as to why they got Kevin Hart to play his character. Again, to the guy's credit, I will give Kevin Hart some credit here. He does seem like he's at least, kind of like Cate Blanchett, like he's at least trying to put forth a more serious performance in this movie, but again, it just doesn't work for me. Kevin Hart to me should be funny, and in this movie he's not. He's got a couple lines that are, I guess, they kind of got some chuckles out of me, but not much. Ariana Greenblatt as Tiny Tina. So, yeah, again, she has the look down, but she doesn't have the character, like the mannerisms of Tiny Tina. Like in Borderlands 2, Tiny Tina is like, she's almost like a young Harley Quinn. Like she's just like this really crazy, bombastic character who just runs around blowing up stuff, and you get a little bit of that with her in this movie, but not much. Like, Greenblatt plays it almost like a much straighter version of Tina, and that's not what I wanted to see from this movie. I wanted to see her running wild, throwing explosive rabbits at everybody. You just get like a small taste of that here and there, but not enough to really like sell the character. She feels way too subdued and calm for what Tiny Tina should be in this role. The guy who plays Krieg, I forgot his name, but that was like one of my favorite characters from Borderlands 2. Like that guy I thought was really good. In fact, I will say the two people who stood out to me the most in this that I thought did the best job were the actor that played Krieg, and the guy they got to play Marcus from Marcus Munitions. The guy they got to play Marcus actually looked and sounded just like him. I don't know if that was the voice actor or not, but whoever that guy was, they really found somebody who fit the role. Okay, it looks like it's Florian Montaigne. I hope I'm not butchering that name. He was the guy that played Krieg. Yeah, and along with the guy that played Marcus, he looked the part and he played the part pretty well. But again, Krieg in this movie, like Tiny Tina, he feels like a much more subdued version of how he is from the games. Like, he has like a few funny lines that he says here and there, like stuff that he says from the games, like, nobody kills me but me, stuff like that. But mostly he just grunts. Like, most scenes he's in, even when the characters are talking to him, he just grunts. And they don't even have like that internal dialogue like what he had in like Borderlands 2, like where he's thinking articulately, but he can't really communicate it, and like that was a big thing from the game, was that he was like, he liked Lilith, and like they don't really do anything with that in this. And I don't know, it felt like there were a lot of missed opportunities in this. Oh yeah, I gotta go back to Jamie Lee Curtis though. Every scene that she's in, she has like this almost like confused, bewildered look on her face. Like almost like she didn't know what was going on. So I don't know if maybe she wasn't aware of what was happening in the scene, and maybe like nobody really explained it to her. I don't know about that, but it just, every scene she was in, including the action scene, she just looked she had like this almost like scared / confused look on her face. So I don't know if maybe she didn't know what was happening or what, but it was really weird to me. So yeah, the casting and those people like that really didn't work for me. Oh yeah, also Jack Black plays Claptrap. So Claptrap from the games, I could take or leave him. He's fine as a character. I never really disliked Claptrap. I mean, he had his moments where he could be funny. He had his moments where he could be kind of annoying here and there. But overall, I think he worked. Here in this movie, he does not work. He is arguably one of the worst parts of the movie. And it's not necessarily anything against Jack Black. I think Jack Black's a funny guy. I think he's a good actor and a good voice actor. I liked him in the Kung Fu Panda films. But in this, he really feels way overused. Like, I don't know what it is about him. Like, they use like some kind of audio or something to make him sound more like Claptrap. But the entire time I just kept thinking, like, why not just get the voice actor that played Claptrap from the games? He already looks like the character. Like, the CGI in Claptrap is pretty good for the most part, and arguably is probably the best looking part of the movie if you're comparing it to the game. But, like, why not just get the voice actor from the video games? Number one, that person would probably be a lot cheaper than Jack Black, and they would sound like Claptrap, so you'd have that authenticity from the games and probably get more people to come see it. The only thing I can think is maybe they just wanted the star power in the hopes that it would get people to come see it in theaters, I guess. I don't know, but regardless, it doesn't work for me. And it's not necessarily Jack Black's voice that I didn't like, it's just the fact that Claptrap is constantly shoved in our faces in this movie. Like he is it feels like every few minutes Claptrap is making jokes on screen and they just don't land. They're not funny. Like some of them get a chuckle or two out of me, but for the most part, I found him just so insufferable. And yeah, like Claptrap from the games, I could take or leave him, like I said, but in this movie, oh my God, after a while, I just kept thinking like, God, Claptrap, shut up. Like I've never been so just frustrated with a character in a movie before, or at least not that I can remember. Like it was a very frustrating thing with his character. So, and again, I don't know how much of that is on Jack Black and how much of it is really on the script or the writing. I have a feeling it's probably more on the script. So I don't know. I was not a fan of Claptrap in this movie. I feel like he was in way too much of it. In the games, at least, like, yeah, he's there, but he doesn't follow you around the entire game, so you get like a nice bit of a break from him throughout the gameplay. In this movie, he's part of the main group of characters, so he's constantly being shoved in your face throughout the entire runtime, and for me, it did not work. Then some other stuff I'm just going to talk about, like just some of the other positives and negatives I'll just kind of go over quickly. I'm not going to go into too much depth about this movie just because there's other reviews out there that are probably going to break this down better than I could. Like, story-wise, it feels like this is kind of an amalgamation of, like, the first 3 Borderlands games. That's another thing about this movie that I didn't really quite understand is who exactly this is for. Like, I was thinking this was going to be like an adaptation of the first game, and then like if it did well, they were going to adapt the next 3 games in the main series into films. They didn't do that here because there's characters from all 3 games in this movie. And like Lilith and Tannis are from Borderlands 2. Same thing with Krieg. But then you've got like Atlas and stuff, and I don't remember if Atlas was in the first game or not. I know the Atlas Corporation was. So it feels like there's pieces of the first 2 games in here. But then there's a character in this game who, I think his name is Crumb, but he looks like Mouthpiece from Borderlands 3, so that was really weird. Like Moxie's in the film, she's from Borderlands 2, I don't remember if she's in the first one, she probably is, I know Marcus is. It feels like there's stuff from the 3 games in here, and it doesn't, I wasn't really quite understanding, like, is this supposed to be just like a combination of all those games? Is it supposed to be like its own separate thing? I didn't quite understand that. It doesn't feel like this is something that people who are fans of the game are going to necessarily enjoy, because me and my friends, we didn't. When it was over and the credits rolled, we pretty much all looked at each other and just thought collectively, like, yeah, that was bad. So I don't feel like this is something that's going to appeal for for fans of the games, because there are a lot of missed opportunities, and I'll get into that here in a second. But it also doesn't really feel like there's much here for people who aren't familiar with the Borderlands series either, because it's clear that there are supposed to be little tiny tidbits and Easter eggs for fans of the games. Not a lot, but a few. And I feel like a lot of those are just going to go right over your head if you don't know anything about the video game series this is based on. So it kind of feels like it's trying to walk this tightrope between both of those things, but never really quite meeting either of them. So I don't feel like this is going to appeal to fans of the games or to newcomers. So it just feels like it's stuck in this weird nowhere where not a lot of people are really going to like it. But yeah, now I'm going to talk about the missed opportunities, because I mentioned that before. This is a Borderlands movie, and I was really disappointed with how they did not utilize the fact that there are guns everywhere in the Borderlands universe. That was a big part of the games, arguably the biggest part. There are just thousands, if not millions, of different guns you can find, each one with its own unique abilities or stat bonuses that it gives you. And there's none of that in this movie. Like, they poke a little bit of fun at that. Like, there's a scene where Tina finds this gun on the ground and hands it to Lilith, and she's like, oh, look, I found a gun. And they're like, okay, great, good job. To me, I feel like that was, like, the only real, like, time that they made any kind of note of that. Other than that, it's mainly just the gunfights in this game, or this movie, are just them shooting at each other with assault rifles, and that's it, and maybe some pistols. Like the Infinity Pistol is in this one. It's the gun that Lilith has, which, okay, that was a nice callback to the games. I remember that pistol in there. So it's kind of cool they put that in there. There's some scenes like where when Lilith first finds, when she saves a group of kids from some psychos, she shoots them and the reticle has like the star in the middle, which is one of the, I think that might be, is that the doll reticle? I can't remember which company that reticle belongs to. But I was like, okay, that's a cool little detail from the games that they added in there. But that's really about it. And like in a Borderlands movie, like there's so much they could have done with that. Like I really get the impression that the director Eli Roth was not, I don't know if he never played the game, if he's not a gamer or just wasn't familiar with it, but like this really feels like a situation where he just either wasn't aware of the source material very well or just decided not to use any of the information from it, because they could have had some wild gunfights in this game, and that's what I wanted to see. I wanted to see people like taking shotguns and then shooting them, and then when they have to reload, they throw the shotgun, and when it reloads, it shoots another shotgun or something. Like I wanted to see like grenades bouncing all over the place. Like I wanted to see just crazy shit happening in this movie with the gun scenes, and we get none of that. We just get standard boring machine guns, and that's all. And that was a huge disappointment. Something else that's a huge disappointment too, and big spoiler for the ending if you actually care, in their final standoff against Atlas, like this is the only time in the entire movie where we actually get to see any of the characters use their powers, and it's Lilith. She uses the siren power from the games. And okay, it's kind of interesting, I guess, although the special effects aren't great. But that's it, though. It's only in that one scene, and it's pretty short-lived, and it's not even that exciting, like when she becomes the Firehawk and uses that to defeat Atlas. I wanted to see, like, Krieg, since he's the big psycho, I wanted to see him go into, like, rage mode and just start mowing guys down. I wanted to see Claptrap use, like, the that rubber ducky ability that he gets in the pre-sequel. I wanted to see Roland throwing, I think his character, he was a soldier, I think he could throw, like, turrets down, like, I wanted to see these characters use their special abilities, and we never see any of that except for Lilith. And again, it's only at the very end of the movie. So again, another big missed opportunity. I just don't understand with how much they had to work with and how crazy the games are. Like, I don't understand why this movie feels so subdued and just plain lazy in that respect. So yeah, just a lot of other missed opportunities, but those are kind of the biggest ones for me. So yeah, I'll just kind of get into, I guess just some of the positives for this movie. I mean, overall, I think it looks like Borderlands, kind of. It feels more like you're watching a bunch of people in cosplay, not necessarily like decent makeup or special effects, but it's not the worst, I guess. So, I mean, the look of Pandora, they got that down okay, I guess. It's not great by any means, but it looks fine, I suppose. Like I was saying before, it's not the absolute worst movie I've ever seen. I would much rather watch this than Exorcist Believer, because at least this had some fun moments in it. Exorcist Believer was just miserable. And this also isn't Dragon Ball Evolution. It's not that bad. Oh no. No. Dragon Ball Evolution is by far one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my life. Quite possibly the worst. Granted, there's a lot of bad movies that I haven't seen, but that is definitely one of the worst, for sure. I saw that back when it came out in, 2009, I think? I saw that one in theaters too, and boy, did I regret it. That was one of the few movies where I seriously considered walking out and trying to get my money back. So, they sent Dragon Ball Evolution. It's not much better, but it's not that bad. Another positive I'll mention just quickly is the soundtrack for the movie is actually pretty good. The composer was Steve Jablonsky, who handled most of the songs for the film. It's also got a few really good songs, such as Like Sugar by Shaka Khan, How You Like Me Now by The Heavy, and then Do Ya performed by Electric Light Orchestra, which was also the song they played in the trailer. It's also got Shine a Little Light performed by the Black Keys. So, I mean, it's got some good songs in there overall. Like, I actually really like the soundtrack. It was actually one of the few saving graces of the film. Not enough to save the entire movie, but still pretty good overall. Negatives, yeah, I mean, too many to count, but just the ones that come to mind the most, I think, is this movie feels like a mess in so many ways. The casting feels off, and on the casting, I kind of want to go back to that for a second. It feels like with Lilith's character, like they have like two of the actors from the Jumanji movies. Why didn't they just cast like Karen Gillan for like Lilith? You know, like she's much younger than Kate Blanchett, and she is a redhead, so she's already got that going for her as far as the look goes. The only thing I can think is, I guess maybe because Kate Blanchett is maybe a slightly bigger actress than Karen Gillan. But like when I look at Kate Blanchett, I just think like this is an actress, like she was in the movie Tar, she was in the Lord of the Rings films, she was Galadriel. Like when I look at Kate Blanchett, I think of like these big powerhouse performances and like Oscar-worthy performances, not a video game adaptation. She just feels so distractingly out of place in this movie. And not to say that Karen Gillan is not a good actress. She is. She's really good. I love her as Nebula. But, like, to me, she would have been a much better fit for this role than Kate Blanchett. So I don't know. And plus, they would have had one more actress from the Jumanji films, the newer ones, along with Jack Black and Kevin Hart. So would have been a cool kind of reunion in that sense, but that was a missed opportunity. Yeah, just the movie feels like a huge mess. The story is also weird, too. Like, the fact that Tiny Tina is supposed to be like a clone of the Iridians, even though that's not in the games at all as far as I'm aware. But then like it's revealed like she's not actually an Iridian, Lilith is, even though Tiny Tina was supposed to be like she was created in a lab by Atlas. So that to me, I didn't quite understand that. It's like, wait a minute, he said he created her to be a clone of the Iridians so that she could open the vault, but she's not. So what, is he just stupid and didn't know what he was doing? I didn't understand that crap at all. So that's one problem. Another thing is, despite the fact that the movie tries really hard to be funny, it's not funny, like, at all. I can only think of maybe a few times where I kind of giggled a little bit at it, but it was more like in spite of the movie, not because I thought something funny was genuinely happening on screen. And mainly that's because of Claptrap. Yeah, and then also, too, and this is the biggest problem I have with this movie, and it's a big one. This movie is boring. This is a incredibly boring movie. And I'm sorry, a Borderlands film, that should not be boring. At the very least, it should have been so stupid and over the top that it was at least kind of somewhat entertaining, but it doesn't even get that right. It is a boring pile of crap. I mean, like, I wanted to see, like, just ridiculous gunfights where just shotguns are flying everywhere and just, you got pieces of car just getting like thrown everywhere, explosions all over the place, and like there's none of that. You get like little tiny bits of it here and there, but like it's just such a disappointment when you consider like the source material and just how fun those games are. Like I was genuinely excited to see this movie with my buddies, and we walked out of there pretty disappointed by it. And this movie is like, it's 102 minutes long, so it's like what, a little over an hour and a half roughly. It feels much longer than that. Like, we were in a theater where we had, like, reclining seats, and I found myself, like, not falling asleep, but coming pretty dangerously close, especially, like, towards the end. Like, the last probably 20 minutes or so of the movie, like, I was pretty much checked out. Like, and not only that, but I feel like I pretty much saw all the story beats coming. Like, oh, okay, here's the reluctant hero. Oh, okay, she's gonna get her arm twisted into going out to save this kid, and oh, they're going to form a bond with each other, and oh, here comes the double cross, and blah, 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 and all that same shit you've seen before in a million other films. So, yeah, like, there's other negatives too, but those are probably the big ones that stick out to me, but the boring one is definitely the biggest. That's the biggest sin this movie creates, or commits, in my opinion. So, yeah, I can't forgive it for that. So, yeah, apparently, I looked this up. Apparently, the movie went through about 2 weeks of reshoots in January 2023 so that Eli Roth could work on the movie Thanksgiving. And apparently, the reshoots weren't even directed by Roth. Apparently, they were done by, I believe it was Tim Miller, if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah, like that doesn't bode well to me. And apparently, they also said that, I guess, Jimmy O'D, who was the stunt coordinator for the film, apparently said in an interview that there were several scenes of heads getting blown up and then dismemberment that were cut out of the film to make it PG-13. It's a Borderlands movie. This needs to be R-rated. This should not have been PG-13. I'm guessing that they did that because they probably figured that that rating would help make it likely to reach a wider audience. Yeah, it also made it more likely to suck. So I guess that didn't pan out very well. So I'm wondering now if like there's like an uncut version out there, maybe kind of like the Zack Snyder cut for the Justice League. Maybe there's a better version of this movie out there that we might get to see down the road. I don't know, but for my money, this ain't it. This movie is bad. It's very bad. Like I said, it's not the worst thing that I've ever seen, but it is pretty awful. One of the worst movies I've seen in probably several years now. So, no, this does not get a recommendation from me. If anything, I would definitely recommend to avoid this film. Don't waste your money on it. There's definitely much better options out there. I haven't even seen Twisters yet, but I want to see that movie more than this one. So, yep, this was a big old swing and a miss for Hollywood. All right, everyone, that's going to conclude tonight's episode. Once again, if you like what you heard, I am on Anchor, Spotify, and YouTube. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll catch you all next time. Later.